The other implementation is running on another URL, and I used it a lot. So it could run with Docker deployment. So it was in FSharp, but running on Linux containers on small Alpine distribution on small VMs and load balancer on all that. So it was really easy and cheap to run.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Our own versions like DigitalOcean, which are like $5 a month subscriptions for those, and they give you like 20 gigs of space. So you could store you could even install a database on there and do things in the database, or you can use the file system, install Docker. So yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah, so it's very, very cheap to run, and actually it runs on my MSDN subscriptions, so it's basically free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But this version is not at all here because once I started to run it, I talked about that to my friends, and one of them is actually the creator of this website you've seen here, which is Board Game Arena, which is a website where you can play board game in your browser. Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is that during the quarantine, they get a very high number of new players. And they told us, if you really want to have some players, put the game on Board Game Arena, and you will have thousands of players tomorrow. On the contrary, on our own website, we had to find some players, and when players were ready to play, maybe they were alone and without other players to play with and all that. So there were really few games played on the other infrastructure that was running really well. But there were very few games. So I asked him, yeah, okay, but this is all in FSharp. Can I run it on Board Game Arena? And he told me, no, it's just on Board Game Arena. It's a JavaScript client side, which was okay because I had the JavaScript Java client side, even if it was produced from FSharp code. But this is PHP on server side.
Yeah, this is the interesting part of the story, right? What you have to do.
So the thing is that it was PHP on the server side. So basically, I have three options: just quit, abandon, and say okay, quit, which is always an option after all. The second option was to rewrite all the server side in PHP, but I never wrote a line of PHP in my life.
Lucky.
And I know from my experience from JavaScript, Python, and all things like that, that writing quickly, you've seen that the logic behind the game is not very simple, like filling paths, finding the FSharp was helping a lot here because as you've seen, the code to write the logic for hexagons, corner, crossroads and roads and all that is very simple and very efficient to write in FSharp.
Yes.
And I knew that it already took me 1 month and a half to write the FSharp version, even if it was my production language based on well-known techniques. It was already long because there are a lot of complicated details in the way you can use cards. For instance, here, when I put a Hebel here, it seems very simple because I just have to click, but there is a restriction. You cannot isolate a part of the board with Hebels. So when you want to place a Hebel, I have to check that the path you will click on is not isolating a part of the board. So this is a problem that is called finding cut bridges in a graph, and it involves a recursive algorithm of graph traversing to find paths that would actually cut the board in a non-adjacent parts. And the thing is that you can do it in a number of operations which is proportional to the number of paths on the board. if you try anything else, you will be in Square or something, and it will be dog slow. And here I had a very good implementation of that in FSharp in 20 lines of code, or maybe 40 lines of code or something that was working very well. And I didn't want to write it in PHP that I don't master, where I have no compiler, when I know that it's very easy to make some just misspelling errors that will lead you in finding things for hours and all that, while I had the code running in FSharp, running in JavaScript. And the thing is that each time I would have to change something, I would break this thing that I can run the same code in the browser and on the server, which is what enables me to apply the command on the browser before and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is very useful. So at that point, the third, I didn't want to go that fast to rewrite everything. So the last option, which was the impossible version, the impossible option, was to write a transpiler and to transpile JavaScript to PHP. So I made the first try, which was encouraging, but led me to 1 or 2 years of work.
Really?
And but I had an idea, since Fable is doing the JavaScript compilation, the transpiling from FSharp to JavaScript.
Yeah.
And JavaScript and PHP have some common properties. They are different, but not that different in the way they work. They are very different from Haskell or from FSharp. But PHP and C# both have, on PHP and JavaScript both have a garbage collector, both have no types and are dynamic, and globally you can find most of the same construction. So I started to dig into Fable and saw that they already did a lot of transformation before emitting the actual JavaScript. They did a lot of transformation that were structured enough so that I could get a structure that would be transformable to PHP.
So you did it iteratively. You first changed all the keywords and other things so you could start to see the shape take form.
First thing, I wrote some very basic F# function and tried to convert them, and then take F# types and convert them, and then use them in very simple function. And after that, I started to convert the third line of my F# code for the game. And after that, I did a fourth line, and then another one, and another one. And after some 1 week and a half, I started to get some part of the things that could run, like adding the vectors for the position, or calculating the neighbor for something, but not a complicated algorithm, but it was starting to work. So I can show you the code of People. So People is my PHP transpiler. And so the idea is that here I have a structure for the PHP construction. So this is a constant. So you can, in PHP, you can have a number, a string, a bool, a null, or a unit. You can have the index of arrays can be either no index, an integer, or a string. You can have a capture by value or by ref. You have fields. Expression can be a variable, a global, a constant, unary or binary operation, property access, array access, new, and all that. And then the statement return, a simple expression, a switch, a break, assign a value, if, a true, or things like that. And then a function has a name, arguments, body, static or not, and PHP type and all that. So this is here the writer. So it takes the data structure I showed before, and it just output PHP text from that. The only small things subtle are indentation and precedence. So that with precedence, when you apply operators, you can place parentheses or not based on the precedence. So it's But my first version didn't manage the precedence, and when I get my first case where it was needed, I just added it. Just have to read how it works and implement it. And so this is a writer. And so the writer is something like 500 line long, so it's not very complicated code, and it works. And then this is more the compiler part, which is actually doing pattern matching on the FSharp internal structures. So one of the cool things with FSharp is that the compiler is written in FSharp, like a lot of compilers, but also the compiler is available as a runtime component. So you can just instantiate the code, get a reference on the library with the compiler and give it some text, and you will get the internal structure at different stage in the compilation. So here I can get a full type AST. So in FSharp, you write code that is not always typed, but there will be a lot of inference that will be done on the code so that everything is type checked. So when you get the typed AST, you get all the structure of the code, but with all the result of the inference.
Okay.
So that you can know that this variable where the type was not declared actually has this type. So after that, you can work very effectively with the code. And so I use it to create my PHP.
So that's where you could drop in terms of, you know, interrupt the transpiler to stop, you know, outputting JavaScript and start outputting PHP.
Yeah, and here I take so the internal structure of Fable, which use the internal structure of FSharp compiler. So Fable takes the internal structure of FSharp compiler, convert it to more JavaScript-ish structure, and then use Babel to actually output the JavaScript. So I intercept the structure before going to Babel. Okay, and I convert this structure to my PHP structure, and then I output the PHP. So I can show you the resulting PHP, which is here. So the initial FSharp code that I transpile is mostly this file, which is all the logic for the game. So it's 2,638 lines of FSharp, which is a good amount of FSharp. Okay, with a lot of things, but it's very easy because actually the output is just two functions. It's decide and evolve. Okay. So all the rest is just implementation details for that. Okay, and the data structure for the input and the output. But then when you run People on it, you will get this this file, which is BGA crazy farmers .php, which is here, and so you get
it blows up quite a bit,
more,
doesn't it?
a bit more, and it's a bit less readable. But the thing is that it works exactly the same. So for the same,
so it's about 3 times the size, at least.
Yeah. So I created some mapping between FSharp structure and PHP structure. So I've shown you the beginning of the code, like X and all that. So I can go back there. Or no, I better have to actually scroll like that. So for instance, my X structure, is just a bit.
You have to scroll a little bit further. Just multiply by 3, right? And then you can get the right number.
So, here, this is the structure I showed. So it has a Q and a R field, and then you can it will implement comparison in depth, which is not necessary in FSharp because the compiler do it for you. And then the operation, like the addition, have a bit strange name, but do exactly the same thing, and the code is derived from the actual FSharp code. Okay.
So
you have things like crossroads sites, like that, the crossroads, and then the simple functions like, no, this is all the data structure. And then we can go to the things that like our first function. I will just, scroll back, maybe further. Not this one. But maybe, no, after that. Yeah, I don't know where they are, but globally, it's just the same code running in a different language, okay? But the interesting thing is that after that, the other challenge is that, so to make it run, I had to implement FSharp Lists, for instance, which is an immutable data structure, which is a linked list. And I just implement all the function of FSharp List in PHP with the same semantic, which is immutable and all that. And it works. I have also maps, which are key values, but where you can, the equality, you can have any, contrary to PHP, arrays that can have either integer or string keys. Here, the key can be any type, which is immutable. So you can index by data structure and all that, and it will just work. You have so and things like that. So this was some code to write in PHP, but as I was writing on running the more and more of my FSharp code, I just had to implement the functions that were missing here, and it was working. And then the other thing is that between my client side and server side, it was using some JSON serialization to go. And in Fable, the default serialization is called simple JSON, which is just a way to convert FSharp structure to JSON in an unambiguous way. And this way, when you take your FSharp, serialize it this way, and then deserialize it from the JavaScript side by your FSharp code, you get the same FSharp structures, okay? And so I had to write the same serializer, but for PHP, so that when I take the PHP version of a FSharp structure and serialize it, it will be deserialized in the JavaScript to give in JavaScript the same semantic of FSharp structure, okay? But
yeah, makes sense.
It's not very difficult. It's less than 200 lines of code, so it was very easy to write, okay? And after that, I was able to actually take my FSharp code and run it in PHP. After that, I just have to do things like a game, and in my game, I can zoop. So this is the framework for BGA. And here I can just require once crazyfarmer.php, which is actually my the transpiling of my code. No, it's my functions are available to this code. Okay, so here this is including my FSharp core functions, which are list, maps, and all that I use in my code, and the serialization. So how does it run? The thing also is that it's not using Cosmos DB, it's using MySQL.
Right. So you have to write that as well.
Yeah, but the thing is that actually in my game logic, there is no mention of the database.
Right.
So whether it's MySQL or it's Cosmos DB, it doesn't touch one line of all my code logic, and there is no mocking or anything like that. So
yeah, I think not many people realize just how well that abstraction happens in event-sourced solutions. That you can really take these, things that really get into your solution, maybe with ORMs or other things. If you can have a much better boundary to switch your database is it's very trivial.
Here you see, so you've seen how I manage all the rest for my FSharp and Cosmos DB version, but here I will show the PHP code for the PHP version on Board Game Arena. So in Board Game Arena, when your code is first called here in these functions, this one set up new game, and you're called with the list of players for a table. So you're not called before that. Finding the players and all that is all managed by BGA. And when players are already around the table, you start in this function with the list of players. And so the only thing I do here, this is their framework, and I didn't touch anything. But the thing I do then is that I take the list of players and I create my own instance of my FSharp structure, my PHP, FSharp converted to PHP structure, and create a list with that. Okay, so this is just instantiating the variable. So here, depending on the options, I create my FSharp version, or my PHP version of the FSharp structure. Also for the goal, whether it's a fast game, expert game, or regular game, whether you can use undo or no undo. I will talk about undo just a bit after, and whether you use a game over card. And then I can just create a command, which is a board command start, with a board start with a list of player, my goal, undo type, use game over. And from here, I call my decide function, get the events to set up the board, save the events, compute my new board, and send the board over the wire to all the players. Okay. So there is just this thing which takes the board, will serialize it in JSON. And on the other side, I will deserialize the JSON, get the same structure in JavaScript, and be able to run it in the browser. Okay. So save events is very easy. I can just go there. So save events is just for each event, save event. Okay, so this is easy, and I can get the version with get last ID. And the save events here is just this function. I convert my event to JSON. I get the case name and the values of the field, and I insert. So I have really a simple database which has a single table, which is events, the type of the event on the body. And there is also an auto increment
column
field.
Yeah.
Okay. And I save my body and my type. I execute the query, and I'm done. Okay. So the thing is that BGA create a new database for each game. So I don't have to manage multiple games. So I can have a single table. I know that events from different games will not be mixed up because they do it. But the thing is that it makes no change in my concerns for the rest of the game. On Cosmos DB, I had a single database for all my games. So I had a bit more code in my infrastructure code to manage that. But here, I can just save blindly my events in the database like that, no fuss. Okay. So this is really, really easy code. So
yeah,
I don't have to manage MySQL from my FSharp or all that, because my saving code is that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then loading events is very easy too. I can just do a select ID type body from events, order by ID. I get something. I use the type on the body to reconvert from JSON. So this is my serialization function. And I just return the ID and the event. And from that, I can load state. So to load state, I take my initial state, which is a global. I can use it as a global because all my code is immutable. So I will never change it in my code. So there, it is safe to use it. My version is 0. And from that, I load all the events. with the previous function. And for each event, what I do is I call the evolve function from my FSharp code, and I get my new state.
Okay. So the ID that you have in there, is that just scoping issues? Why it has to?
Which one?
The long name for the evolve function. It's auto-generated to have that so that it has the right scoping, or what's the reason behind it?
This is the name of the module, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there are ways to give better names to you by using more interopy things and all that. But I didn't care because this is always the same. So you write it once and it will actually never change. Okay.
Yeah.
So I get my new state. I can also compute my stats, but I will not talk about stats now. And I get my states. So after that, all the game is done like that. So the way to send action is a bit, you cannot just send JSON over the wire in BGA, because they know that people would, developers would mostly do silly things with that, and it would be a security concern for them. Mm-hmm. So what they do is that they have something very restrained where you can just pass integers and enums and all that. So what I do is that for each action, I have an endpoint which will take the values and create my player command. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I can just take the play card function or the given function. So for instance, the move function is here. It takes a direction and the destination, which are the structures from my FSharp code converted to PHP, okay? Mm-hmm. I check that I'm in a position to make a move, and then I get the player ID. Cool. I create a command move with my player move, okay? And then I play the command. So this is also the data structure that I created in FSharp to represent the player move to this position, okay? Yep. And so play command then is very simple. And this is the function I use for every action in the actual system. What it does is that it loads the state of the game. So it loads all the events. It calls for each event the evolve function. So people will think it will become very slow and all that, but a game is never more than 300 action.
Yeah, okay? Exactly.
So make a loop that will call 300 times a function that just mutates a few fields, because the evolve function is very simple. The evolve function is just replace this value with this value, take these two values, add them. This is not the decision function that will try to do the complicated algorithm. It will just happen something to a list, concatenate two lists or something like that. No more. So doing it 300 times is just instant.
Yeah.
I get my state, my board, my stats, and what I do is just I create a board command play with the command for the current players, and I call my decide function, and I will get the events, and I don't have to know the complexity of this function once more. But here I will get a list of events that I can just save and fall to get the new board, and I'm done. So here, this is just updating the score from the board, because I have to compute. So this is a projection. And this is another projection that updates states, statistics. So it will take the last statistic, compute a new one and all that. It's a bit more complicated, and I wrote it in FSharp because it also handles the undo, which is a bit more involved.
So there's undo in the game?
Yeah, I will explain after that. Yeah. And
it's a tricky one, right? But event sourcing kind of makes it a little easier.
Yeah, and if it's not empty, I just send the event to each player, okay? But there are two things. First, in the game log, you can when you send text to the players, they will have small notification on the side, like you've seen here. Mm-hmm. So these are the small notification on the right side, or no, here. You help me here. Okay. So I have a function that takes a list of events and creates a small text like that. Very easy because I have the event. So it's just a simple function that takes an event and outputs some text, if any.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I have functions that convert. The thing is that you cannot share all the data with players, especially cards. Okay.
Right.
if you send the draw pile, or if you send other players' ends to other players, you can cheat just by looking at your variables in the JavaScript. Okay?
Yeah. So that's an interesting point, because wouldn't you want to do that if you're learning or just starting the game, but then later you want to hide them and encrypt them, maybe, or something?
So first, when I started, I had all the ends on all that on all the players, but quickly I found that it would be a bad idea. So the idea is that when you have a hand, I just have to find the hand function hand. Here, the hand is either private and you just have the card count, or it's public and you have the card list. Okay, and all the function on the hands, for instance, is empty. If it's public, it will check if the list is empty. If it's private, it will check that the length is 0. If it is public, it will check if this is a public and a private land. To private will take a public end and return a private end with the length of the list, but a private end will just a private, the same thing. The count of card will be either the length of the list or the count. And then what I can do is that all my code can use either version of end and will react the same. The question is, do you have initially a private or a public version of the thing? Okay. So when I create the state on the server side, I create it with all the data. So everything is public with all the data. But then when I want to send the state to initiate the client, I will transform every public structure to a private one if it's not known by the player. Okay.
Right. So that means you can still do your regular moves because they'll be public to you. It'll be your stack that you understand. So you still have fast action.
It will be only about cards in hand, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can take cards in hand and change them to a private hand, and so you will only have the count of card of a player. Okay.
That's right.
But this way, when a player, for instance, plays a card, I can apply remove one card from hand, which will return the new hand with either, if it was your hand, it will remove the card, but if it was someone else's card, it will just subtract one to the count.
Exactly.
Okay? But the rest of the code can stay exactly the same. Okay, and this way, when I send, for instance, there is an event that is a player drew card. Okay, so a player drew card from the draw pile, and what will happen is that when a player drew card, this event will be sent to the player who drew the card as a public end, so it will have the list of the cards, and to every other players it will be sent as a private end, so they will receive the same event but with only the count. Okay.
Yeah.
And this way, when they will apply it, they will not know the cards the other player drew, but they can still add 2 locally to the value of the card count, so that it can be displayed correctly in the browser, like here. So here you can see the number of cards of the players. Okay, but you can see only your end in the card list. Okay, and you will have only this data. So this is why in this part, in this here part, I convert to private given the user ID. So if you're the right user, it will just keep it public. But if you're not the expected user, it will make it private. Okay. So this is a simple FSharp function that will reconstruct the structure, but just converting the values. Okay.
Awesome.
And then you convert it to JSON and just send the notification. So it will send the JSON over the wire. And on the JavaScript side, it will just deserialize the JSON, and then you can use it to compute your new state.
And it's just events, so it's the same mechanism.
Yeah, so there is a small bootstrap here for the BGA version where I can register to their framework's version, to their framework function. And then I can set up, and I will pass an object that I created in FSharp to this thing. And then everything that arrives through this function will be sent to the FSharp code and will go through the update function of my Fable Elmish application. So it will just go through updating the state. And actually, in this BGA version, so they ask you the HTML for the rendering. And actually, this is just a div here that says this is a React div. Yeah. And then all the thing inside I render by Fable Elmish in React. And so this is there is almost no HTML on this side. The only thing after that is that on the right here, there are small boards. So I have to do some multi-div rendering in React to actually insert my divs here and still display them with a small system of views, like I give the state and it will render HTML and it will be rendered here. Okay? Yeah. But after that, the code is the same. Okay. So the interesting thing with event sourcing is that I could first prototype my code locally in writing it in a JavaScript in a FSharp, but running it in JavaScript in the browser to make sure that it was running smoothly, and CSS made it not too difficult to get quickly some rendering and all that. Yeah. Then I added Cosmos DB and WebSocket to the mix but when I did that, I had never touched the actual game code.
Yeah, exactly. It
was just support code for making the thing happen. And after that, I had to transpile to PHP and running on MySQL, but still I never changed a line of the logic in the code because I don't care what inside as long as the signature is the right one. The only thing that changed is just getting from the HTTP endpoint and actually creating the command object to run the decide function.
Yes, exactly.
But I have three commands or 4 commands, so it's very easy to plug this way. And going through MySQL was not a problem because this was a simple table, and as you've been saving and loading is just 40 lines of code. And after that synchronization, in one case I did it with WebSockets, but here I did it with BGA notification functions. And it was the same, very easy and all that. And in the end, it was just working. And so I started to let people play, and they asked for an undo. Okay. And usually when people ask for undo, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And in a traditional architecture, very much so.
Yeah. Because you have 2 ways to do it. Either you save everything, but then where is your state? What is saving everything? What is loading everything? This is a bit complicated sometimes. And what about all the mutable shared stuff and all that? And the other option is to reverse. But the problem is that you cannot always reverse because you cannot reverse actions that are irreversible. There are functions like if you move up, you can reverse by moving down. But when you made there are some change where you cannot know what was the state before because there are multiple solutions. So
right, you could arrive at a certain action that has taken place based on number of different commands or parameters.
Yeah, so I took an afternoon to implement undo.
That's easy. I think people have to understand the whole game took how long to make, and then to add undo.
The whole game was 1 month and a half of development.
Yeah, 1.5 months.
The CSS, the logic, synchronization, saving, on all that, and not converting to PHP, only the first version.
Right. Okay. So you look at that, you have one afternoon for undo.
And one afternoon for the undo. So doing the undo was very easy. And the thing is that you have not one undo, you have 3 ways of undo. You have full undo, limited undo, and no undo. And this is an option when you start the game. Okay.
I see.
So you can even choose your undo level when you play, because the thing is that in the full undo, people usually don't like when people have seen cards and then undo.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I go to a barn and I look the card and I don't like it and I say, oh no, I didn't do it. The question is, if I do it again, what will I get? Okay. If you try again and you get a new card, the thing is that either it's the same card and after that you can decide to not take it, but you will let someone take the card and you will know what card he has.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or you can try, if it changes, you can try several times to get new cards and things like that, which is not good also. So there is 2 simple options which are no undo. So no undo is totally no undo. And the limited undo disable undoing moves where you took cards.
Okay? Right, yeah, so you're not disclosing information.
Exactly. But there is also the full undo, and in the case of the full undo, the way it works is that the draw pile is defined on the server, okay, and it has a specific. And also, it's very interesting for event sourcing, because how do I shuffle cards in my event sourced system? The thing is that when you create the start command, it will output an event that will contain the board initial situation and the shuffled draw pile.
Yeah.
Okay, with all the cards in the given order. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so this way, when you say something like when you need to draw cards, just took the first one or the 2 first one for the draw pile, and so the evolution function is very simple: remove cards from the draw pile, add card in the end, and this is easy. But so the thing is that as long as you play, you always use this value of the initial draw pile. So if you take a barn and then undo, it will just go back to the state where the draw pile was the same one. So if you try again, you will get the same card. Okay.
Yeah.
But then what I do is that once you end your turn, if you have some cards that have been disclosed, the draw pile will be reshuffled. Okay, so that you cannot use the information you had to know what the other will have. Okay.
Right.
Okay, and the way it works is very, very easy. It works this way. So I will just move this like that. And the thing is that, so I had a board, okay? So my board.
We can't see, hold on. We can't see the right screen for some reason. I think you're still sharing the
yes,
board.
I think it's paused. Okay, here. Do you see it?
There, now we can see it, yeah.
Yeah. So initially I had the board. On the board was all the players, the discard pile, the draw pile, barns. Players have a tractor, a field, a hand, and all that. Okay, so this is the state. And what I do is that my evolution function is taking a board and returning a board. Okay.
Right.
So you take a command. You say these players play this command, and you will get some events. And when you apply events on a board, you get a new board. This is the evolution function. Okay. But the thing that is cool with evolution function is that they compose.
Okay.
So what I did is that I create a new decide that that can process one more thing that the other, which is the decide, it doesn't change much. But the thing is that you have a new function, a new command, which is undo. Okay. And this undo can lead to undone.
Right.
Okay. So it doesn't lead to undone because, for instance, if you configure the game in the start function to say no undo, doing undo always triggers no events. Okay. If you made a limited undo and you just made an action that make it not undoable, the undo command will trigger no undone event. Okay. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And after that, but the thing also is that action that you do in the game can sometimes trigger an undo checkpointed event. Like when you finish your turn and then all the action before the beginning of the turn happened, like ending the previous bonuses or card effects, something like that. Undo checkpointed events will be returned. Okay. That says we can go past this point with undo. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I create an undoable board. Which add a board and a checkpoint.
Yeah, the one that you can't go past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for every action, you just, so at the beginning, your checkpoint is your initial state and your board is the initial state. For any action you do, you just take the board and call the decide function for the board with the command. Okay. And you get some events. Great. Okay. And this is the only things that you do for the decide function. Okay, so you take the board field from the undoable board and pass it to the other decide function to get your events. Easy. Okay. And in your eval function, no, the other thing is that the undo kind is useful to know here if you can do or not, so you can pass it through the rest. Okay.
Okay.
But that's really easy. You just have to access the board and do as you did before, and it will work. Okay. And for the eval function for any other action, take the board. Take the command. Oops, where is my? Take the board, take the event, compute the new board, and put it in the board. Okay, so that's the thing. Each time you have undo checkpointed, you copy the board here in the checkpoint. Okay, but this is an immutable structure, so it's not a problem to copy it, because it will never be changed. So it's safe to actually copy, to just copy the reference. Okay.
Yeah.
So just copy the reference to the checkpoint and you will compute new board. Okay. And when you have an undo, you copy your checkpoint to the board.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Can you undo the undo and just keep switching?
In this game, you will always go back to either the beginning of the turn or go to the last point where you could go, like you just took some cards and you cannot go past that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But
so once you end your turn, so this is basically undo within your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yes. And it's normal because you don't want to undo and go back to other players.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. This is just a safety measure for someone doing something accidentally.
Yeah.
Clicking in the wrong place.
Yeah, and something very interesting is that people can think, yeah, but you're keeping twice the board in memory. So it's a lot of data. And maybe in the browser, it will not work. But actually, I'm not using the board twice in memory, because actually most of the last board here is based on the same data structure as this one. Because for instance, if the last move didn't change the fields, I can reuse all the fields data because it's immutable, so it will not change. If I have a new field, I will just create a new field. But even a field is a set, and the set is based mostly on the same structure as the previous set, because it's also immutable. So when you have a set and you add a new entry to this set, the old set is not changed, but your new set is mostly composed of the same data structures and the old set.
Yeah.
Okay? Same thing when you add something at the beginning of a list, you didn't change the previous list, but the new list is just one node referencing the old list. So actually, the difference between both is just a few changes that have been made in 3 moves.
Yeah, so essentially you're storing the delta in terms of storage.
In storage, you just store the data, but you will use it as two totally, you could copy everything, but it's not useful because it's immutable. So actually, this difference is quite small.
Yeah.
And the undo is safe because without mutability, it's very easy to implement, just copy the structure. And you know that there is no way you can write code that will mutate and screw the actual state.
Yeah.
So after that, change to my state. I just had to add a few things to my 2 functions. Change to my storage. I just had to be able to save the undone thing and the undo checkpointing thing. It's just 2 new events, so I had to change basically nothing. And it was implemented, just I had to put a button so that you could click on it. So I can demo it here. So I will move and then decide no, and I go back here. Oops, no, you don't see it because it's here. So when I move and then I decide no, and I just can go back. Okay, and this is new events. I don't remove previous events. I say I undo. So go back to the same state that you computed before. And this is part of my data structure, so I don't have to roll back anything. I just have to keep both my undo checkpoint and my current position in. So depending on your domain and all that, this solution is not always applicable. But here it was really simple, and for most games it's worked very well. And for a lot of action, just being able to go back to a checkpoint is also very useful. It's very easy to implement. I didn't show you the game database, so maybe I will do. Yep, here. Oh, no, I will go through this one. Go to game database. So. Yes, go. And so the game database is really, really simple. But this is to show that, yes, you can do it in PHP and with MySQL, and it just works. I mean, people get scared about event sourcing because they think I will have to use the event store. I don't know. I will have to use a fancy database. I don't know. Will you have to, and all that. And it's not actually difficult to use, but the thing is a lot of new things and what I showed is that, I try to show is that you can write really simple code. You can write very few lines of code because as you've seen, my PHP infrastructure code is just a few 200 lines of code or something like that. And then you get your code running. And here, so it is here. So board event started. So this is the first event when you start the game.
Yeah.
That will set up, and it contains the full setup of the board and the cards and all that. And then the first player played first crossroad. So this is a selection of the first crossroad, and then it drew a fence, all that. And here, this is the other player. So this is the next and the undo checkpointed events.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an event when the end of the turn of the player is done, and then I check the thing, and then the rest of the thing, check, and yeah, we can continue like that, just this way. And for testing, it's very useful because what I do is that I can just export this, and then I convert it again to why is this moved? Well, I don't have test here. For instance, when I have some problems in games,
yeah, you can just paste all the history and solve it right there.
Exactly. So this is a real game that happened between two players, and so one of the players was disconnected due to a bribe card, and it was not expected. So they reported a bug, and when they report a bug in a BGA and they give the table number, you can get a snapshot of the database. So I just reconverted everything. So I just take the text of the PHP, and then I have a function that deserializes it as a FSharp event, and then I just fold to get my initial state, and then I try to make the same moves that they did when it did not get the right event, and then I just have to test that the actual result is what I should have and not what they had.
Yeah, and this is actually a very good example of what other people have done with event sourcing. There's a bunch of people that we're working with that were doing this at an auction company, or sorry, advertising company with for selling vehicles, and they, because they're doing event sourcing, it got to the point where the customer service people were able to tell the developers what the problem was, because it was so easy to see the previous events that a customer had done and why they're having problems. So it was a very good tool.
I have this one also, which is a debugger. And the debugger is just a small Fable application that is totally client-side. And you can, there is just a field where you can give the text of the events, okay, of the export of the database. And you will get, it will use the code to display the actual state of, I will try to run it. Because it's quite interesting. Maybe I so the debugger, and from here, no, not this one. How do I run it? I don't remember what I did. This is but the thing basically is that you can run it and pass so you will get a FSharp Fable view that will take the same CSS and all that, and then you can just give a bunch of events, and then you can go to any point in time, and it will show the board at the time. So it enables you to understand more visually. But it was just 1 hour of work, because the thing is that I just have to create two free comments for the client, which are load the messages, load the string, or go back or go forward, and go back and forward, just compute the state locally, given the list of events, and then use the view of my other code to actually produce the output. So this is exactly the same.
A lot of places, a lot of people that do event sourcing, they can easily add these left and right sliders at the bottom to move
yeah.
left and right in the timeline to see like a movie what happened.
Yeah.
You know, you can fast forward, rewind, and see exactly what happened. It's really powerful.
Since everything is data structure and immutable, you can at the same time display the view in HTML and display the state as a data structure, because the state is always the same, one data structure. So it's very easy to actually just output it as text, formatted text, so that you can see what is the value of each of the fields and see the list of events, the events that happened before, the events that happened after. If you have a log also of the comments, you can display side by side the comments and the events by using the correlation ID, for instance. But you don't have to do all this. You can just start small, and at the need arise, take a few hours to write it, this kind of tool. And it will be really easy to reuse, because you will just have to change the function or thing like that, and you can use it for something else and it will work. So
exactly.
Very, very easy. So the code has the code is rather solid, because I've run. I can show you. We had how many games? Crazy Farmers. So we had 12,000 games played.
Wow.
Since 1 month, so we were on the front page, so we had a lot of games at the beginning. Of course, it's a bit less. We you know, in the game, the small fences like that make something like 25 millimeters, and when you put them side by side, we drew more than 45 kilometers of electric fencing size. So.
Wow.
This is quite a lot of game. So,
but that's the nice thing about looking at it from the event sourcing perspective. You just capture the fence placed event and do your math from all the games.
Exactly. And then you multiply by 25 millimeters.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get it. And the thing is that the number of bugs for the game is actually really low. So this is the total for 12,000 games. This is the total.
Wow.
No, maybe there is just a bit more. But the thing is that there is a lot of not a bug or suggestions that were rejected because they made no sense. And most of the fixed have been done in the hour. One of these thing is the undo, which are actually implemented. And the few bugs here are all related to a complex algorithm when you use a specific cards in a specific field situation, and where by taking one parcel you will also take another one, and it should be forbidden, and I have to apply the same algorithm than the one for hay bales. To prevent from actually using it, because it will put the game in a bad state. But it's not due to a bug. It's just that I should prevent this action and I did not. So when people use it, the state is not correct, because actually when you do it on a board, you will see that it will lead to an incorrect state, and I don't prevent it. So this is a very, very border case. Here I only have the history does not reproduce selected step, but I think it's a JavaScript bug of the code I wrote in JavaScript, because there is no way it doesn't work in this case where all the other history things work correctly. So because I can just show quickly, but once you finish the game, because interesting, for instance, this one is finished, you can just replay the game. But I think it's it just sometimes in board game arena it happens, and you can just say, okay, show me this player, and then play.
Nice.
And this is not managed by my code, actually. Board Game Arena is managing this. But the thing is that they are just sending all the notification. They notification, but since my notification are actually the list of events that were produced, the replay is just doing the fold on making the rendering, and this works. So you can see the game like that, and it works really well. So if this works, the other way it should work, but there is maybe a small JavaScript thing that is not off. But the total game is really stable despite the complexity, despite the fact that it was transpiled from from FSharp to PHP, that the same code has to run both on the server and the client side, and it has to be the same on that, and everything is really, yeah, this is I think I won this one. Everything is very stable. So I'm really happy. I used this way because it enabled me to move from one infrastructure to another one without doing things like mocking or things like that. So it stayed the same. It was stable. Everything I did. Most of the thing, debugging is a bit harder on BGA. So most of the development was done still on the local or Azure version, and then just transpiled and deployed. So I can have exactly the same functional code for both versions and deploy both versions and expect similar results in both.
It's interesting, these game platforms. I'm not sure why they wouldn't want to offload the actual game engine to something you host, so that you wouldn't have to do a PHP transpilation.
Because after that they are in charge of the game, even if I don't want to work on it anymore. So they have the code, they know how to run it. If they have a lot of people using a lot of platform, a lot of different hosting environment and things like that, they are not able to continue to use the game after that. So
it's amazing how good it is.
Modifying the actual FSharp to PHP transpilation will be a bit hard, but still it's doable. You can still go to the code and modify it if there is a bug. It's doable. So
it's a really good thing to notice that even their fast forward and rewind notification system is in step with the actual events you're using underneath. So using their features of their platform, you can put exactly on the timeline which events you had done and go in and paste them in and do that test. So so now for the future of the game, you're going to fix those few edge case bugs, and they're not really bugs, they're just requirement sort of omissions because of the permutation.
They lead to invalid states that can cause some problem to end the game, but in really edge cases, and that people can also learn to know when you do it on a board, you will not produce these cases, but here it will. So this is just that people that don't know the rule well enough will try some moves that are actually not allowed.
So they're not enforced in the digital version.
So in a digital version, people will try to rely only on the visual cues to actually do things or not do it, and we'll try things that should not be done. So
nice. Okay, well that's an amazing walkthrough, quite a lot of history. And you said the initial idea was 2003.
So
17 years ago.
2002 or 1 or something like that.
Wow. So that's a long time, I guess, because like you said earlier, you had a job and contracting and other things. I couldn't concentrate on this as much, and then you decided lately to just do it, which is great.
So and the thing is that for this development, I took some time on my work time also. But because developing the PHP transpiler actually it's valuable for my company because we have most of the platform we created in the last 10 years, which is in .NET and FSharp. And we made a fusion with merging with another company a few years ago, which is mostly in PHP. So this was an opportunity to test this, but this is also a way to write code that is running in .NET in FSharp and that will run in PHP based on the same code base, and that can also work, for instance, inside code that is in PHP, but with running FSharp code converted to PHP in the PHP and JavaScript code written in FSharp inside the other JavaScript. All of that. So a lot of opportunities for interoperability.
Yeah. Especially then, since there's so many companies that are really old that are still their code bases are in PHP, like this board game Arena, right? They require PHP. So I'm sure there's a lot of other instances where you have established companies that are PHP only on the back end, and anything you want to do, you have to do in PHP.
For integration. And the thing is that if I need also to integrate with things that like Node.js, I can also use FSharp and transpile to Fable. So I can have the same library and compile it as a nugget for .NET, FSharp or C#, and compile it to JavaScript for Node as a library, a package for NPM, and compile it to PHP for a package manager like Composer. And I have the same code that is compiled for a free environment. But actually writing a transpiler for Go or for Python or others, this is quite the same model, so it would work.
So Fable can be a starting point to quite a lot of projects. And I think one last thing about PHP is that WordPress is a huge PHP project, right? So, you know, this opens up an incredibly large universe for anyone that's doing F#. They can make sure that they have pieces that can be easily authored in their favorite language, but then will work on widely accepted established platforms like WordPress.
In this case, for instance, I think integration by services is often a good solution to mix languages and platforms. But the thing is that sometimes it's costly.
Yes.
Because you have multiple deployment, because without containers management on the servers can be complicated. Networks implication of crossing networks can lead to some problems and all that. So sometimes just conforming to the language is cool. And,
absolutely. But necessary. In your case, it was 100% necessary. But
often we do the other way because we have no transpilation, so you cannot interrupt in the language. But once you have a good story for transpilation, actually just conforming the actual platform instead of trying to mix things can be a very good option. So
no, it's wonderful. I think the fact that there's something that's fun, usable, it's a board game, it's a product that, you know, I'm gonna hopefully get it when it ships to North America at some point. So I don't know if you have plans on making some board game company to manufacture it over here, because I know you want to limit the amount of pieces that are manufactured in plastic, shipped overseas. So if we can get it, you know, produced in North America, that would be really cool too.
At first, it will be simpler to send them. But if this is a success, yes, of course, we'll try to manufacture it in overseas. Yes.
Yeah, so that'd be really nice. Because I have a board game store that's close in my neighborhood that I go to sometimes, and it'd be really nice to see the game there. But it's if people know the story behind the game and you know how you automated it, and I think event sourcing is and CQRS is at the core of information systems. And I think it's very evident in games that you can have these different views into state, manipulated in a repeatable, dependable manner. It's crucial for games, right? We can see how business applications are more forgiving oftentimes than games are.
Of the bugs that were reported, people explained to me the situation, and I could just, without reading the code, just think, oh yeah, okay, they did that, they were in this state, and so and I know that usually most of the bugs you just have to look at the state and see the state is so distributed, the path to get to any point is so unclear.
Exactly.
That, you cannot guess just by the story.
Yeah, a lot of times you can find a bug that actually occurred several steps earlier, and only it only manifests in something that the player experiences later on after many other steps. So having this breadcrumbs, not getting lost in the forest, you have that set of events that are always deterministic. That the state is going to be in this written in this way. So
easy to reason about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing when this is applied to the real world as well, with real systems too.
So,
okay, well,
we take some questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions, I think we had one about playing playing online, but I think everyone couldn't survive the almost 3 hours. So if there's any other questions, you can just type them up in the chat. That would be great, and we'll read them out and answer them. But I think it was a very full explanation for the idea, the implementation, how you used FSharp, and then how you made it available online in some of these. You said you could host it yourself, but then you wouldn't have the same audience. So you went to the board game arena, but then you had a technical challenge, and because you had used FSharp and it's an event-sourced set of patterns, then you had an easy way to satisfy those requirements that you didn't anticipate. So it's a very, it should be a really good example of how when you're doing event sourcing, you have way more options. It's the opposite end of entropy. Everything's organized. And if you always just use current state, you're really missing out on a lot of powerful options. And so we like to say it's event sourcing is a default option for us always. So we do have some questions now. So we have Jesse Riggins asking impure commands that need to do IO and things like that.
There were some cases like that because not that much, but the thing is that IO, I don't need really IO because only IO I use is network to propagate events to compute state. And save, unload, and I showed the code, and it's just persistent, so it's very easy. The only place where I add a kind of a reaction is for displaying a card when it has been just played. So the way I do it is that when I receive a bunch of events from the server, I just take the list of events. And if the list contains a card played event, I put in my local state. So actually, in the browser, the model for the view is not exactly only the board. I will show it here. It contains just a bit more. So it's here in shared client, and so it contains the board that is undoable, the local version, the synced. So this is the version calculated from the server, the version from the server, the player ID that is playing in the browser, the card action, which is actually the display. No, you cannot see. I'm not sharing my screen anymore, so I will show it in a few seconds. Share screen. screen. Okay, so here it is. You can see it?
Yep.
So this is a model for the browser side. So there is the undoable board, and the undoable board is the structures that is my state that will go through the decide function and the evolution function. The rest is only for infrastructure and local things. Like, so the local version and synced, which is the version we computed from the server. So to be able to do the optimistic application of commands locally. The player ID is the ID of the player locally. So I can use it and show it and all that. Card action is a card that can be displayed temporarily as an overlay when a card has just been played. So when I receive messages from the server, this is here in my check, not this one, remote events. If there is a card played like that, I can create this structure that will display the card that has been played, okay, and just put it here in my structure. And after that, so it will be displayed on screen by the view. And there is an animation that will hide it after a few seconds. That's all, okay?
Yep.
So this is a kind of side effect, but everything is still mostly immutable and all that. So if I had to play sounds, I would use the same. So I would find the sound based on the events and just launch them as I received locally the events or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the events will be, the sound will be played or the card will be shown when we do things like when you are replaying the game from the beginning, like I showed before with the history thing.
Yeah.
We'll see the card new when it's displayed. But if you have a hard side effect, like really modifying another system, the pattern will be a bit different. But Adam, you're talking about it in even modeling with
yeah, we definitely remove it. We want everything that we want for business applications is exactly as you have it, deterministic, etc. So anything that reaches out to an external system has to have, that's not actually done in the command handler. That's done beforehand, and it's added. The result of that call to something external is then added as a parameter to a command. So that's essentially what we do for other applications. The game domain is nice because it's a very nice boundary for what your system is. The system boundary is very clear. It's your game. So to have pure functions, there's very little external things that you need to incorporate. It's really a self-contained system, which is nice. But there are patterns to make sure you have the same experience with your system, even though you're making calls for, I don't know, interest rates or exchange rates or whatever things that are timely that you need to get from the external world. So there's definitely those patterns. But yeah, well, if there's any more questions, well, maybe we can close off on how people can reach you to have more questions about the game, more questions about FSharp, your company, how to, what you guys do, how you can help others.
So exactly. So to reach me, mostly Twitter. So this is Think Before Coding, written like that. Think before with a B and a 4.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just write it in the chat log.
Well, we will put these in the video description later.
In my company we have some we have several teams that work a bit or more in FSharp. Of course, everything is not in FSharp, as I said. There is a lot of C#, there is a lot of PHP. But we try to make everything run together. We also have some event sourcing in production. Not that much because of historical reason and all that, but yeah, at some point, and we use at least part of the patterns of event sourcing and CQRS for a lot of usage. So yeah, we are working mostly in France, but we have some offices and development in Barcelona, several cities in France, and we are doing more and more remote. So I don't know if we will open remote position about soon, but you can still try to ask. I'm not in control at that point.
Okay.
This is a big company, so yeah, I'm not in charge of everything, but yeah.
So which communities are you active in? Besides Twitter, are you on any forums or other places? Any specific Slack groups that you can be found in?
Yeah, I occasionally take part in Slack groups like domain-driven design, event modeling, CQRS, and FSharp groups. I try to go to domain-driven design, or to be a speaker to domain-driven design or FSharp conference related things on a regular basis when it's possible. And I really like to mix things like music and programming and gaming and all that. So maybe you will see my presentation where I play ukulele live.
Oh yeah.
Sharp. Or I made a presentation also in San Francisco to write a simple video decoder in FSharp, everything immutable but totally zero allocation.
Huh.
Or things like that. So yeah,
interesting.
This kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time and explaining everything in such detail. I think so many people will learn from this. I hope it gives the visibility to FSharp and how good it is as well, that you can easily be productive and have things out there very quickly. And to see the concise syntax if people are getting tired of typing brackets and braces everywhere. They have an option with type checking that's still nice. And immutability at the core and all the good functional things that
running continuously in the browser and things like that also, which is really cool. So
yeah, so I will post everything in the show notes when we post this, so people can get a hold of you. And I look forward to playing the game. Now I want to go to the game board arena and start playing.
I put the link to the game, and you can just start playing with a free account. So if you have a Google or Facebook account, you set up your account in 1 minute, and then you can play. So
wow, it sounds awesome. And then if people want to buy the board game, it's a Kickstarter that they can still contribute to, correct?
No, it's over. Closed? No. Yeah, okay, it's closed. But we will find some options to
get more board games. Okay, well, I certainly
around October.
Okay, so certainly look out for that, and we'll send a link to that after. And so I look forward to doing this again to see the success once it's live, and in October we can do a follow-up and see if you get revisions to the game and use it as, see the bug count decrease, and all these users are finding edge cases for you, which is fun. Yeah. So it'll be exciting to see this, and I look forward to seeing you again in France or another conference when we can travel again. So thank you for taking the time. This has been really, really good. Okay.
Thank you for the few ones who are still here also.
Yeah. Well, 6 people down from 20 at one point, so that's good. Generally, yeah, the meetings, I try to do these meetups between 2 hours and 4 hours, and I don't want to, interrupt or cut something off. So we always try to continue to talk, so that people can, ask questions, or we can have a discussion without worrying about having to finish. And so. anyway, yeah, so that's good. I'm very happy that we had the chance to do this because, like I said, I always wanted to do the Catan version as an example. Maybe we can just use Crazy Farmers as an example. You know, in the meetup, we try to have some code with some. I think they're really boring applications. It's time tracking.
I believe the patterns I used here for the game will end up in my upcoming book about functional event sourcing.
Oh, nice. Good.
Still underway, which has been on pause for a few months because of the game release.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm back to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good books on event sourcing coming out now, which is great. I think a lot of the fact that you keep it pure and just look at state and a functional paradigm, you know, it does help domain-driven design, but it doesn't need domain-driven design. You know, the words such as aggregates and all these things aren't really necessary to do it. If you look, you know, when we're looking through the code, we didn't notice this. These words like aggregate, you know, they just don't exist. No. So there's definitely a common history and overlapping with the communities about these concepts, but you certainly don't need them. You can, or, you know, if it helps your organization, by all means use it. But if there's no necessity for it, don't, and it'll still work. You know, these are sort of like mathematical foundations of state for applications and information systems and all these things and programs. So anyway, thank you for staying so late. I know it's probably 10 or something.
10, like 10:30 in Paris.
10:30. So so let's do this again whenever there's something. If you have the book, maybe we'll do the we can go over your book next time, which will be a lot of fun. See, and especially if FSharp needs all the help it can get, because Microsoft hasn't been spending a lot of money to promote it. So it's always nice to showcase the communities that are underrepresented and deserve more. So it's nice to be able to do that.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, awesome. So I was hoping Greg was going to be here, but anyway, next time. All right. Have a good night, and we'll see you online. I'll publish this shortly. Ciao. Bye-bye.